Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this edition of Catholic Cocktails. It's a weekly video production of Salt and Light Catholic Radio in Boise, Idaho. And this is the weekly program where we sit down and we raise a glass and share a toast with some of our famous and sometimes infamous saints of the Catholic faith.
So each week we introduce a saint and a drink that goes along with them. It is associated in some manner, either to their past or personality. And then we'll introduce it here, and then we'll send it over to Teresa of Avila, who will tell us all about the saint, or as much as she can in the small time we give her. Then she'll send it back to us. We'll have our amazing bartender make the drink, and then we get to try it and talk about what we learned.
Yep, and it's all based here in this book, Drinking with the Saints by Michael P. Foley. And today we are talking about Saint Teresa of Avila, and the drink is on page 285. It's called the Butterflies. So what we're going to need is some dry vermouth, some sweet vermouth, little brandy, and some orange juice. Sounds like an interesting combination.
I know, I'm a little hesitant, but hey, don't hate on it.
Could this be a swing and a miss? Not sure. Stick around and find out.
It's always an adventure with us. You'll need the same old equipment: a shaker, ice, glass, and strainer.
All right. Well, let's send it over to Teresa because she knows all about Saint Teresa of Avila.
The church celebrates on October 15th the amazing woman, Saint Teresa of Avila. Teresa was born on March 28th, 1550, to a wealthy Spanish family. Her childhood was happy and marked with childlike piety. At the age of 6 or 7, she convinced her elder brother, who was 11, Rodrigo, to go off and become a martyr. She felt this was the quickest way to attain heaven. So they left home, but their attempt was thwarted by their uncle, who brought them back home. So Teresa devised another plan to attain heaven, and that would be for the both of them to build hermitages in their family garden. The lack of sufficient rocks in the garden thwarted that effort. But we see that Teresa, from a very early age, was determined, was courageous, and had a knack for leadership. She also recounts that there was a picture in her room of Jesus giving water to the Samaritan woman. She would often stop at that picture and repeat the words, "Lord, give me of that water that I may not thirst." Jesus would remember that prayer and honor it. However, early in her teenage years, her mother died, and Teresa sort of set aside her earlier piety. She was very attractive, both physically and with a charming personality. People loved to be around her, and she indulged in teenage trivia of clothes and jewelry. She wanted people to think well of her. Her father became concerned. So at the age of 15, he brought her to an Augustinian convent, which was more or less a finishing school for young, wealthy women. She was there for about a year and a half when she contracted a severe illness that ended up sending her home. It was during this time that she discerned a call to the religious life. So when she recovered, and then at the age of 20, she went to the Carmelite convent of the Incarnation. And then after a year, she was professed. But then again, the illness came back with a wild ferocity. None of the treatments the doctors were using were doing any good, and she became worse and worse. In fact, there was a point when she fell into a coma for 4 days, and they thought she was dead. She came out of that coma, but was paralyzed. Her uncle Peter gifted her with a book called The Spiritual Alphabet. It was an introduction and guide to mental and contemplative prayer. This became Teresa's resource. And when she recovered, she returned to the convent. However, the convent in the 16th century were more like social communities for young unmarried women who didn't want any responsibility. The women had their own suites. They were encouraged to have visitors. They were encouraged to go out on visits and vacations with friends. They had all the creature comforts they want. Some of them even had their own servants. It was while in the convent that Teresa forsake her practice of prayer. Fortunately, a spiritual director of Teresa's encouraged her to revive that practice. She did, but with little progress. She said, on one hand, God was calling me. On the other, I was following the world. She would go into prayer, paying more attention to when her prayer time would be over than the fact that she was in the presence of God. Thank goodness she had some good spiritual directors, some of them even being saints. She was also influenced by the book, The Confessions of St. Augustine, and she had a devotion to, and was to St. Mary Magdalene, whose intercession she also credits as helping her make spiritual progress. Teresa would make such great spiritual progress in her prayer life that she would go on to eventually have a spiritual, mystical union with God during her prayers. It was also during this time that her opinion of convent life changed. She realized that the convent of the Incarnation, which held at some point 140 to 180 nuns, was too large to have any authentic community life or to have a shared common purpose. She also thought that the lifestyle of the nuns made them too open to worldly distraction, and it encouraged concern for social standing and the creature comforts. She realized that God was calling her to found a new type of convent, a convent that would only have about a dozen nuns, that would follow poverty and would endorse a life of strict enclosure. She met with tremendous opposition, not only from the nuns who had qualms that their lifestyle was being questioned, but the surrounding community was concerned that, oh no, not another convent that we're going to have to support. But even the clergy were opposed to the idea. But remember, Teresa's determined and courageous. She ended up successfully founding a new convent in 1562, dedicated to St. Joseph. Teresa would end up founding 17 orders, or rather 17 new convents in her lifetime. She also has a distinction of being the first and perhaps only woman to reform a monastery of men. She reformed 2 monasteries, with Carmelite monasteries, with the help of St. John of the Cross. She's also given credit by Butler's Lives of the Saints as being the first woman in the church to write systematically and at length on spiritual life. She wrote numerous letters, a half a dozen books, and a number of minor works. Upon her death at the age of 68 in 1582, she was later canonized in 1620. Pope Paul VI declared her a doctor of the church in 1970 because of her writings were so rich in mystical thought and Christian spirituality.
As we do each and every week, we film Catholic cocktails at the beautiful Harp Irish Pub and Eatery here in Meridian. And behind the bar, Miana has joined us one last time.
One last time.
Oh, so sad. We just get a bartender broke in and then they leave us. So I'm starting to take this personally. What do we need for today's drink?
So for today's drink, we're gonna do some sweet vermouth. We're gonna do some dry vermouth. And then it calls for red Dubonnet, but we don't have that. A good substitute for that is gonna be brandy.
Great.
And then we're just gonna do some orange juice.
Wow, sounds yummy. Well, I'm gonna step aside and we're gonna watch her in action. We're gonna make the butterfly.
All right, so just like always, we're gonna take our shaker, we're gonna fill it up with some ice, and then both of our vermouths just call for 3/4 of an ounce, so we're just gonna throw 3/4 of an ounce in there of one of each. There's one. And then our dry, there's that. Ooh. And then, since we don't have red Dubonnet, we're gonna use the brandy. And the brandy's only 1/2 an ounce. So we'll throw 1/2 an ounce in there. And then lastly, 1/2 an ounce of orange juice. Fresh pack. Perfect. And then you're just gonna go and shake it a few times. Grab your cocktail glass. And your strainer. And then we're just gonna strain this. Into that glass. And there you go.
All right, well, ladies first.
Alrighty.
What does a butterfly taste like?
Oh gosh. That's nice.
Is it?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's refreshing. I think the orange juice helps cut the vermouth kind of bite on the end, but it's still got that sweet candy-esque, like.
Yeah?
I actually might order that. Guess what I put on top though?
Egg white?
Yes.
Egg white froth.
Egg white froth, y'all. I'm
New
telling
band
ya.
name, I call it
Egg white froth.
coming to the stage.
Choo 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 choo.
So, St. Teresa of Avila, and we had some fun facts about her. Very happy childhood, very pious, lots of piety in the household. But then, unfortunately, her mother died when she was just a teenager,
Lots of tragedy, yeah.
and sort of went off the rails a little bit.
She got her wild stage
Yes.
going on there.
Sowing some wild oats there, spending money on clothes and jewelry like they did back in the day. But so she was sent to finishing school, aka the convent.
Yeah, you need to be a better person, school.
So we're assuming that it's there that she discerned religious life.
Yes.
So, and that she was the first female doctor of the church.
That is super cool. I
Yeah.
don't know. Do you know what signifies what a doctor of the church
So I
is?
think there's 3 things that go into that. So first, it's a person whose teaching on the faith has been deemed sound and of benefit to the church through their writing, study, or their research. Second, they must display a high degree of sanctity, which is why all of our church doctors are canonized saints.
Right.
And third requirement, to be named doctor of the church, a formal proclamation as such by the people or an ecumenical council.
Okay.
Not people, Pope. Let's try that again. Formal proclamation as such by the Pope or an
okay.
ecumenical council.
So there's quite a few steps you have to go through.
So we're just not handing them out willy-nilly. I mean, out of all the thousands of saints that we have in the church, I think there's only 37 doctors of
Really?
the church.
Okay. I thought there was less than that.
So, yeah.
I need to do my homework.
That's right. So, it's a big deal. So back
Yeah.
in 1970, she was the first doctor of the church.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So like St. Thomas Aquinas, isn't he considered a doctor of the church?
Yep.
And I mean, a lot of theologians use his work.
Right.
I haven't heard her work used as much, but I'd be interested to learn a little bit.
But she is definitely a fallback for a lot of people. I know we ask people on our morning show here in Boise about what their favorite saint is, and oftentimes she is one. I know she is for Teresa of Avila, who just told us all about.
Yes.
Because it's the namesake. But yeah, she's very popular, and for good reason.
Yeah, her and Teresa, the little Therese,
Therese,
Therese, the little flower. I get them obviously I get them mixed up a little bit, but they're two very different people, but their paths or their chosen way of practicing spirituality are very interesting.
Yeah. So sometimes we like to share Last Call with you. It's a little brown box that we find inside of our book, and it's got some fun facts that sometimes we like to share with you. So St. Teresa had a wonderful, dry sense of humor and is reported to have once said, "Lord, save me from sour-faced saints." So make this prayer your own tonight by turning it into a toast as you, vow to never confuse life-giving sanctity with buzz-killing sanctimony. If you don't have this book, you really need to get it.
You really need to
It's
get it,
a lot
man.
of fun stuff in here, and
She's quite sassy, wasn't she?
yeah, lots of drink recipes, of course, but more importantly, a lot of wonderful information about our Catholic saints. So it'd make a great Christmas gift with the holidays right around the corner.
21st birthday.
Yeah,
Just throwing it out there.
that's right. So who are we going to be talking about next week? Do we know?
Next week is Saint Luke,
Ah.
and we will be trying the oxblood. So
Oh, the oxblood.
the oxblood.
Not real oxblood.
No.
You had me scared there for a second.
I know. We're just gonna.
I think I'm going to call in sick next week.
Yeah. No, I'm actually excited. I like things that sound weird, like the devil's one that we tried.
Right.
I always get a little excited. Anyway.
So until then, St. Teresa of Avila, pray for us. Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.